All right, let's do this. Week 36 recap from the Comedy Accelerator Stand-Up Workshop here in Austin, Texas, taught once again at the Creek and Cave on April 26th. We were outside again this week, and if you've been down there at the Creek and Cave, most of the time we're inside. Every once in a while they sell the show or the showroom for a private event or they have something going on. So we got moved outside. This may be the last time we can do outside. We'll have to find some other alternative setup because it was 85 degrees in Austin, which doesn't sound that bad, except there was also direct sunlight and you can't do it. So we're reaching that time where Austin's going to remind everybody that it really doesn't want human beings here and it tries to burn us off the surface of the earth. So we'll figure out something going forward. But we had 37 people there. We're getting closer and closer to 40. It's still super fun. And I'm always grateful to the Creek and Cave for letting us be in there. They don't make money off of it. So, again, it's the largesse of their hearts. In the career section, we had a guest stand-up this week from Montreal, Saanya Nanda, who is somebody, she's in town to try to get on Kill Tony, and she likes the Austin scene. I met her about 6 months ago when she came through the workshop and offered to mentor her because I really liked her stand-up. And we've been doing that since then. And it's really interesting to watch her now because she's just moving into headlining. She's just got enough material and some opportunities to headline. And so she's a very early headliner. And in some ways, she's even skipped being a feature, although she has featured. But in the past, the sort of developmental leagues for stand-up was, you would open it with 15 minutes for a while, and then you'd immediately try to move to feature for 30 minutes. You do that for a year, maybe longer, till you get your set really organized, and then you would slowly start to headline. That system is just not really in place anymore. The leaps and the changes that you make in your career aren't predictable in that way. So I thought it was a good idea for her to start headlining, actually, because she works dark. That's her chosen genre, and she's very, very good at it. In fact, she's so dark that she may be one of the darkest comics I've ever seen. But she combines it with being clever and quick and very likable, and her character is very different. She's Indian, she's female, she has a very different way of delivering, so I see a lot of really good elements, but she's just now starting to headline, so I thought it would be interesting for the workshoppers who are a couple of levels below her for the most part, just not doing professional gigs yet and still trying to build material and stage experience, to talk to somebody that's in between kind of where I've been and where they are. She's sort of ascending the ladder. So it's always fun and informative, I think, to talk to those people. So that was great. I thought it was a really interesting interaction, even though we were in the heat. At this point, we switched right over into the instant fixing hour. So instead of trying to do the small groups outside, we just moved right into getting on stage and working on a specific skill area, which for this week was performance again. It's our fourth final week that we're doing a performance. And we were working on your core stage persona, which is essentially who you are almost all the time when you're doing comedy, when you're on stage especially. It's how you talk, how you dress, who you are, for the audience, for when you start to deliver jokes. And the best way to think about this is there are old school comedians like Joan Rivers, Rodney Dangerfield, and some new school people too, but more so those really old characters who were one thing. Like they didn't really act, they didn't change from appearance to appearance at all. But they ran multi-decade careers on that one really core, strong stage persona. And you recognize them instantly. And so the question is as you are developing your stand-up career, can you create a character like that is so strong, that is so interesting, that people just are riveted by it? It's magnetic and memorable and lovable, charming, quirky, all the things that you want people to instantly feel when they see a character on stage. So we're working on that. And a couple of examples of people that did things that were trending towards that during the workshop is we had one woman who was there for the first time I met her, but she went up and did leg kicks like a cheerleader during her entire set, which is about a minute. So she made 5 leg kicks, which again, that's a performance thing that you never see really on stand-up stages, so it was memorable. And then Pam went up and did, she insisted on going out because she wanted to work on her new bit, which is about pelvic floors falling apart in older women. And which was, there's a great tradition of older women comics across every culture, really. But in stand-up, there are things like there's a very successful stand-up tour named Women of a Certain Age. It was out a while back. It's probably still going, but one of the headliners on there, Lynn Koplitz, we used to have the same manager back in Hollywood, and she's really good, long time stand-up, like hardcore club stand-up. Gets up there, it's just bam, 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 and tons of character. So that's a really good market, like any kind of market that you can sort of, the demographic of who you are on stage matches up to the demographic of who they are in real life. That's a good way to make money and get booked. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with Pam as she goes down that road. I also talked about that I'm basically treating Austin and this workshop like a little Hollywood. Like I'd rather Austin act more Hollywood, by which I mean more professional, that there was more of context here for people to see money up above them and see if they develop, that they can get to that money and get to that money quickly so that they can start making a living with it. But also it means when I'm teaching this workshop, even though I have a big background as a professor and I used to teach intro to public speaking, so I know how to be kind and compassionate as a teacher. Like when you're teaching 18-year-olds who have public speaking anxiety and they're being forced to go through a public speaking class, you have to be very soft. And that's fine. That's a totally viable thing in education. But I'd rather not do that here. I'd rather teach this like a Hollywood producer, which doesn't mean brutal. It doesn't mean cruel. It doesn't mean all the things that you see in movies whenever a Hollywood producer, pops up, schmarmy and sexual assaulty and all these other things about Hollywood producers. What it means in my context is just being honest, direct, giving you really good feedback very quickly, because I'm in a hurry and everybody's in a hurry in Hollywood and they've only got so much energy. You can also still be kind and considerate, but I'd rather people adjust to that where they start to practice professional level Hollywood skills, because that's where they're ostensibly what they're trying to get into, is being professional entertainers. And the other thing is I encourage these people in the workshop to use this as a networking opportunity. And in Hollywood, you don't waste networking opportunities. You're always networking. Even when you have jobs, you're networking, because these jobs go away really fast. So you always need a very reliable, constantly growing, very dense network of good connections that will actually do things for you. And that's kind of the main thing when you network in Hollywood. It's a favor game. I'm doing favors for you, you're doing favors for me. We don't keep exact tally and not everybody returns favors, but it's the best way to get into Hollywood before you have sort of the uranium assets where you've already shown success and there's always already a demand for you. Doing networking, creating really strong relationships that are reciprocal. I got everything on my own in Hollywood until I broke in and got management through stand-ups that I'd done favors for. And so they did a favor back. Finally, in the context of this week now is Netflix is a Joke festival in LA, where basically Netflix takes over all of Los Angeles for a week or 10 days, does big venues and even small venues. And so there's a lot of people, a lot of comedians right now in LA doing all that stuff. This week or next week, I can't remember. And then Kevin Hart's Funny AF just launched on Netflix, which they've recycled this idea many, many times in many variations on TV and cable of stand-up contests. How do we find the funniest stand-up? There was Last Comic Standing for a while. America's Got Talent always has a stand-up component in there to its show, and they usually pick at least one stand-up to let ascend through the show, and sometimes they win every once in a while, especially if they have another thing like going on that's not just straight stand-up. Like there's puppeteers who've won, even though their puppets are basically just doing stand-up. So we're gonna do a thing here since all those things came out. Like there is a contests and festival side to this industry, to stand-up. And so I want to maybe take the next 4 weeks and work on that. How do you get into festivals? How do you get into contests? How do you do a showcase set? How do you design that? How do you get it so that when you actually get an opportunity in front of a booker for anything like that, a contest or a festival or even a TV show or a deal with a production company or a network, how do you showcase so well in that very tiny, limited amount of time under their constraints and what they want to see to get to win the contest? So we're gonna do that. We're gonna do a Comedy Accelerator stand-up contest. And I'll make a post about it, and I'll probably do a video about it here in the next few days so that everybody kind of understands the way we'll set it up. It's totally arbitrary the way you set up contests, completely arbitrary. And most of them are, not fair. And then they rig things behind the scenes. I've seen a lot of contests come and go, and they're almost always rigged. It's entertainment. Entertainment does not like things to just be sort of flaky and just whatever happens, happens. They like to know what's gonna happen so they can engineer it for the best effects. And that's generally true across all of entertainment. So we'll do a Comedy Accelerator contest. And finally, we all slid over to the Shiner Saloon for our first week where we had a headliner. So the first hour, 45 minutes to an hour was stand-ups doing short sets, which went really well. Casey Fernandez brought some friends and she had a great set. I thought Rock had a great set. People were doing 3 or 5 or 7 minute sets. And that kept the things moving pretty quickly. So that the room didn't flatten out and kind of become a desert of laughs. And then Saanya got on stage and for the first 15 minutes killed. I think at that point, like I said, she works dark. She may have driven some of the normal humans out of the room. She hit a bit of a flat spot. And again, this is the thing about headlining. Until you've headlined a ton, you don't know how to rescue things like that. You don't know how to manage energy across 45 minutes. And so it's a learning thing for everybody who moves up into that slot. She brought it back really well at the end and it was a great night in general. So I thought it was a success. Next week, we've got a guy from Poland who is a professional comic in Poland and is moving over into the US market. And he's been in Austin a couple of times. And also a guy that I met through the workshop that I like. So he's gonna headline, Tomek Kolecki, however you say that. He's been on Kill Tony and did really well. So that should be a fun week next week too. So there you go. I will update you. But again, anybody wants to come down to the workshop, it's free. Right now, Sundays 3 to 5. If there are changes about what time we're gonna do it and how we're gonna do it, then I will let everybody know. But other than that, we will see you again soon.